Today we're going to talk about how to calibrate your extruder on an Ender 3 using Marlin. So I need to point out a couple of quick things. It's assumed on an Ender 3 that you have the EEPROM enabled, which is rewritable memory. Most of the time it will be, but I will show you other techniques to handle it. So to start with, I've populated or filled the actual extruder right here with filament, and we're going to do a print, but there's a couple things you need to know. So there are G-code commands, which I'll show you right now. On the Marlin website, if you go to the help part, you go to G-code and then all documents, you can actually search on G-codes that we're going to be using. So in this case, some of the G-codes that I've already marked out would be like cold extrusion, and this will allow us to actually extrude because the printer is limited based on temperature when it can extrude. So we're going to have to change that. So let me show you what it will look like for the actual command sets. So what we want to know is the expected versus the actual, and we're going to multiply it by 100 for our new calibration value. Now I've obviously put this in more clear terms in English. Hopefully this will be helpful, but I've also outlined the G codes that we're going to be using in this case, and I'll show you other techniques to deal with it. So down here we'll do our current workspace. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually connect to the printer first in Pronterface. This is just a tool so we can communicate with it. So I'm going to connect, and I'm going to use the M503 command to see what our settings are. And the setting that we're interested in is actually this line right here, which is, I'll copy this over so you can see it. Hopefully it'll be more clear. Let's try Control V. There we go. So these are our current settings. So what we're interested in is the actual value here. Now this is already dead on. So I've already calibrated this once before. So I'm going to show you how I make it wrong, and then I'll make it right. So let me power up the printer real quick here. And what we're going to do is we're going to change this to 100. And the reason I'm showing you this is to show you what happens when it's off. So we're going to paste that command down here. And now that you can see it's 100, we're going to try and extrude on the printer and see what occurs. So to do this, we have to set up cold extrusion. Like I said before, it's this command up here, which is going to be the M302S0. So we'll copy that. We'll paste it over here so that we can extrude. But before I do that, let's try and extrude and see what happens. So I have it set to a length of 100. Let me see if I can bring up the actual both screens so you can see what I'm doing here. So let me see if I can make this more clear. There we go. So as you can see, it's right here. We're going to click extrude and see what happens. So it says that there's a cold extrusion prevented. So I'm going to paste this command in here, and as you can see, this will change that issue for us. But before we actually extrude, I'm going to go back over to the printer for a second and prime it so that we can actually extrude more clearly. So in order to do that, I'm going to move this all the way back to right where the edge is, right here, so we can see it. Then what we'll do is we'll do the cold extrusion with the actual setup that we have with the G code that we just used. So we're going to extrude for 100 and see what we get. Noting that the value currently is 100. So let's see what happens. So this may take a few moments to actually occur. But what we'll do is we'll mark it with an actual marker when it's done, and then make the cut with a pair of clippers that I have right here that I'll put up here so you can see. And this will be theoretically not the right size because we've changed it to 100, but it's useful for you to see what's occurring and how simple it is to calibrate. Now on other printers this will be different. You may not have remote extrusion. You might have direct extrusion, in which case you're going to have to get creative by like removing the print head. But in this situation on an Ender, it's the most common. So as you can see, it's almost there, hopefully. So it just completed. So I'm going to take out a marker, and I'm going to mark this, the edge of where it is. And then I'm going to push it through just a little and cut where that is. And that will be our end position. Okay, that's off by maybe a 0.5 millimeter or a millimeter, which is okay, but we understand that. So we're going to take this and we're going to straighten it out as much as we can, and then take a ruler that has millimeters on it, such as this one, and we're actually going to measure the distance from 0 all the way up. And this one comes out to be approximately 100, and we'll say 15 millimeters, or I'm sorry, that's 105, sorry. So let me measure that again real quick. Yeah, so that's approximately 105 millimeters. Being a 0.5 millimeter off is okay. So what we'll do now is we'll reset this. So we'll take this back to where we can feel it on the edge. And then what we'll do is we'll go in and modify this to be correct. So let's go back over to the desk. And let me bring this up so you can see it here. So over here, we know that the actual value currently is 105. So the E is 105 for the actual. And then the expected, let me see if I'm doing this correctly. The expected rate here is 100. So we're going to take out a calculator, and we're going to say that 100 divided by 105 equals, and it says that it's 95, so I'm probably doing this backwards. So these are the actual over here, and then we have the expected, because I know what the actual end value is. Actually, I might be incorrect. That's pretty close. The original value I think was 93. So let's see what happens actually with the way that we had it. So expected divided by actual. Let's go over to the calculator for a second. Sorry for stumbling here. And we're going to multiply by 100. And this will give us 95.23. This might be an error in my cutting, but we're going to put that in right here. So this will be our new value for our settings. And we'll paste this command into Pronterface. So what we'll do is we'll do a Control V. You can see the command down here at the bottom. We'll hit Enter. Then what we'll do is we'll go back over to the printer and do the same operation again. So let me bring this up so you can see it. And let's try the extrusion again for 100 millimeters. And as of today, I don't know if it happened yesterday or the day before, we now have a new version of Marlin. I will be doing tutorials on that eventually. Also, please remember to like and subscribe so that more people can know about these videos. And I will place a thank you message in the description, or excuse me, in the end of the video for the viewers that are on Patreon or on eBay, or excuse me, not eBay, PayPal, that have donated. Sorry, I'm a little tired today. So we're getting pretty close to this finishing up here. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so it's about to stop any second, hopefully. And let's mark it. And then let's cut it. So I'm going to push it forward a little here. You can also do it in the firmware, or excuse me, in Pronterface. So I'll cut it as close as I can to the end point right here, and then we'll measure it. So let me bring up the big screen here so you can see what I'm doing. So essentially, take out the ruler, find the 0 point, then bring it down here. So that is approximately 100 millimeters. So it looks like we just nailed it. So to save this in the actual settings, what we're going to have to do is we're going to go back over to the desktop for a second. And the command that I'm going to use is up here that I outlined before. So M500 will save our settings for the EEPROM, or onboard memory. So to do that, all you have to do is come down here. Let me clear this out for a second and say M503 and hit enter. And now this will be good between actual boots of the actual machine. And I'll show you what I mean. If we change this value real quick, so if I were to, let's see if I can up arrow. There we go. So if I up arrow and I change this to 100 and hit enter, now what will occur when we go to boot it, which I'll show you right now. So if we go over to here, I'm going to actually disconnect from Pronterface for the moment. You're not seeing that part, but I'm going to turn it off with the power and disconnect the actual USB, because that's where the actual power is going to the board. I'll plug this back in. I'll then power this back up, and then I'll go back over to the desktop and I'll bring up the actual screen here so you can see both. We'll connect, and then let me clean this up real quick here so you can see the top. Go up here and we'll say M503 for our command, if it lets me, and then press enter. And as you can see up here, the value still is 93.93. Originally it was 95.5. So there's something going on with the actual saving, which is interesting to me. So let's try changing that again real quick here. I know this is somewhat extraneous, but we have the new value down here. For some reason it didn't take. So let's see what's going on. Paste that in there. It's 95.93. Then we're going to do the save, which is M500, I believe. So it's saying the settings are stored. Let's power cycle this real quick. Let me disconnect over here. Power that off. Power this off. And hopefully I did something wrong, which will help you guys learn not to do the same thing. So we'll reconnect. We'll do an M503. Let me just clear the screen real quick here. So we're going to display the settings M503. And the value now is saved. So something happened that didn't save it. Also, I didn't show you where to change this value inside of the actual configuration file from Marlin, which some of you will be interested in. So it's default steps per unit, or excuse me, default access steps per unit. And right here would be the values that you would change. They're written up here so you can see that it's XYZ. So this would be XYZ. And this is on configuration.h. And then your E steps, these are the defaults that are set in Marlin, are incorrect. So if you were to extrude for 500, you'd get a very long extrusion if it were 100 millimeters. In this case, that would be E0. Now, if you have multiple extruders, which some people do, you can set them individually. I don't suggest that. I suggest using one value instead of doing the comma delimited like they have up here for them. And that way it'll apply to all of them. But it depends on what you're using. Usually the same motor types and stepper types will help you with that. And at this moment, I'd like to thank you for taking a moment to watch my video. And be safe, take care, and I'll talk to you later.